Today I'm going to show you how to install this Hyper 212 Halo White on a Bitaxe. Here it is unboxed, ready to go. So here's some things you're going to need. You're going to need a heat gun, soldering iron, maybe some holders, copper shims, 10mm, 20mm, 0.3 works for me, screwdriver, flux, solder paste. I use a Thermalite 60mm fan. For the heatsink itself, I like MX6 thermal paste by Arctic. Sometimes I use Coursera and I also use Thermal Grizzly depending on which one I want to use that day. Some scissors. This is just for comparison to see the size comparison of what you're putting on. I like to put mine on a break the Fiat case. And also some solder wick. Like, this is very underrated with dealing with Bitaxes. First thing I like to do is take the fan out, 60mm. So do this. Stick this through here. Got that in. I like to take, rip some foam off the packaging from old Bitaxes. Rip a piece of foam off. Put the fan cable in place. And just ram that in there. This helps hold the cable in place so it's not always falling out the case. So that's complete. I had dremelled this one earlier for another Bitaxe because these heat sinks are so big that it's kind of hard to fit them in this particular case. But yeah, that's how it should look when it's ready to go. Before you modify a Bitaxe, just hook it up. Make sure it's hashing in factory settings. Here we got 1700 and 62 degrees. Take this. Move the sticker. As you can see, like, my 3D print didn't come out so great like the hole, so I'm gonna have to widen this hole up so the screw can fit through. Alright, this is what it looks like once you got the 3D printed mountain bracket on. V-side should be up, everything should be flush. Final part of the prep for the cooler. Take a pea size. Hold on. Yeah, take a pea size. That should be good enough. And I take a copper washer and just center it like so. Now that's ready to mount. Next, take your Bitaxe, remove the heat sinks. You want to get it to just a bare Bitaxe, nothing on it. Now that that's off, take some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip and clean all this off. Doesn't have to be perfect, just generally clean, though. Alright. Next we need to remove the reset buttons, the fan connector. Normally there's a fan connector here, but this one just has the port, so we don't have to worry about that. We'll just leave that. So I'm going to take our soldering iron and remove all of these. So I got my soldering iron, just going to heat this up and kind of push it off. Comes right off just like that. Now let's get the other one. Next we need to remove this large fan connector, and we're going to take some solder wick and try to get as much solder off so we can push the pins out. A Q-tip, a little flux right there, and we can take our wick and start removing this solder. I wasn't able to get the solder to wick the way I wanted to, so I got a fresh piece of solder wick. Gonna try again. So this fan port has a lot of solder on it, so I'm gonna try to wick it from the other side by pulling this plastic off and wicking on this side. Let's see if we can get these pins out. Alright. Fresh piece of solder wick, gonna try to wick from this side. So the wick got a lot of solder off, but it's not getting enough off to release it the way I want to. So what I'm doing is I bend the pins into a U shape and then slide the soldering iron under the U shape and then just kind of lift, heat and lift. Yeah, came right out. Alright, let's do the next one. So you better see how I did that. Bend it over into U-shape. Like so. And stick the soldering iron under it and lift gently. Yeah, came right out. Seems to be easier than wicking. Okay, last one then. Finally got this out. Doing this fan port is probably the hardest part of putting this heatsink on. You got to get all this off without damaging the little resistors on the other side. So we're just gonna should come out any moment now. Alright, finally got all the pins out. Still need to clean up on this side, but we're almost done. So I'm just going to work the rest of this out the holes. I'm going to take this. Kind of clean this up. Be careful you don't hit these little resistors and stuff right here. Now I don't know what kind of solder these guys use at IX Tech, but it was really difficult to get this off. But I got it. Now this next part is optional, because you can just run your fans off a USB power cable. But since the clearance on this board is going to be too low for a fan port sticking out on this side, what I like to do is I just take a fan cable, female, and cut it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip these down, wire them through there, and it's going to be in this orientation, wire them through there, solder them in, and then just fold the cable down like so. So I just kind of like gently press into the plastic. And let's see if we can. I did it on both sides. See if we can kind of get this apart. You see it comes off right there. And try to keep the wires where they're kind of sealed together. Try to keep them like that. Makes it much easier when you solder this to the Bitaxe. So just going to peel these apart one by one down to that point and get this plastic off. Okay, so I got these stripped down evenly. So this is a part you don't want to rush through if you even want to do this part. Try to keep them as even as possible. And then take each wire and kind of like, you know, twist them together. I'm going to do this for each one and try to keep everything together and then run it through the board and solder it. Okay, this is what you end up with. You end up with four twisted wires, straight as possible. Make sure you keep the orientation right. That tab should be right there up against the Bitaxe, and you want to try to work each wire into the hole without messing up the next one. So it's like kind of get it in there like that. Just kind of work them in there. And first try. So kind of pull this one through. Once you got them through, you're going to fold it over like this. Fold it over like that. So your wires kind of hang down. And see, like you actually using the wires on the other side to hold it in place. Like get them nice and tight, nice and flat. And this looks good. These wires down a little bit. Because this heat sink sits kind of low and you don't want to expose wires touching the bottom of the heat sink. So you want, that's why you got to get them as even as possible and line up with the board. So when if it does touches, it's going to sit on top of this rubber, not the actual wire. So now that we got that in there pretty good, clamp it down. Now we're going to flip it over and solder it. So now that we got this in place, I'm going to take this solder paste and put a bead in each hole. Keep it nice and neat. Alright, like so, 4 little beads. So I got my clamps holding this thing down while I heat it up. Just kind of wave it around until this solder paste melts and beads up. it kind of dries up first and then it melts. And you see that? It's like melting and going into the holes and beating up. And once you see it do that, you kind of remove the heat. It seems like one kind of messed up right there. Let me see. So there it is. Got the fan wire on. Not the neatest job I've done, but test fit it. It does clear it. It does sit above it, and then with the once I put the copper shim in, it should be in better. You can also use like some silicone or something over there to protect it more once we're done. But now I'm just going to take this and snip off the excess wire, because you don't want these touching. So what I want to do now is I want to test the Bitaxe, make sure everything is okay. So I'm going to put the factory fan back on and connect the fan up to this fan port, cable fan port, make sure everything's working okay, and then finish installing the cooler. So here I got the Bitaxe over here by my power supply. I'm just going to plug everything in, make sure it hashes for just like 1 second, and then unplug everything, because this is kind of like no man's land right here. So now I'm going to plug everything in. I got the fan that's going on the Coolermaster cooler, and the Bitaxe right here, and I'm just going to plug it in for 1 second and see if it hashes. Fan came on, and let's see what it does. So let's see. So 50 degrees. It is hashing, so I'll plug it. Let's test it. Now that we tested everything, it does power on. It does still hash. The fan port is working. We can go ahead and put the main cooler on and then fire it up again. So here's the final main part of the install process. Got the copper shim stuck to the bottom of the cooler. We're going to go ahead and paste the ASIC. So I'm going to use the box to mount this. I'm going to set the box right here. Take the cooler, sit on top of there, and we just kind of guide this onto the cooler, like so. Just get everything lined up. Like that. You got 4 nuts right here. Gonna take the 4 nuts and put these on and then tighten it up, and it should be good to go then. Right. So getting all these finger tight. And, yeah, you just want to snug these up. You don't want to crank them down too much, like, because it'll flex the board. You might damage your board if you over tighten them. So I just like to really just get them kind of hand tight, really, and then maybe crank it down with the Allen wrench one time. After you get it nice and tight, you want to look through the gaps. Maybe shine a light on the side, look through the gaps, make sure it's actually got flush contact with the ASIC. You can actually see it through there if you look just right through the light. You don't need to put the fan back on to test if it's actually mounted. So I'm just going to plug it back in and see if the cooler is actually working, because these big coolers, like, they don't need a fan to actually work. We should see a temperature drop already. And should see a temperature drop. Settings have not been changed. So there you go. This cooler appears to be working. 37 degrees, 38. Just gonna let it hold for a little bit. This cooler is holding about 40 degrees at 800 megahertz with no fan. So we can go ahead and get everything put back together. And here we have the final product. Everything bolted down. And next thing to do is plug up the fan to the Bitaxe, and let's see if this thing's still hashing. Alright, let's plug it in and see if this thing is still hashing. Alright. Okay, good. It's powering on. Let's see if it's hashing. Okay, it is hashing. Successful install. Thank you.